The most demonized Minecraft update since 2015 has been, without a doubt, the chat reporting added in 1.19.1. People can now be banned for incredibly vague reasons if someone else simply reports them. And the overwhelming community response to this update has been, who asked for it? After 12 years without chat reporting in Minecraft, why did we need it now? And from information that came out in this past week, the answer seems to be the United States Department of Homeland Security, who view it as an anti-terrorism measure. That sounds ridiculous, but there's actually some basis behind these claims, which were recently confirmed in an Ars Technica article, and today I wanted to share them to explain exactly how it is the US government believes that Minecraft is fostering bigotry, racism, and extremism. Those claims sound ridiculous, but you know what else sounds ridiculous? The fact that greater than 99% of house fires have to be people who aren't subscribed to the IBX Toycat YouTube channel. You can do with that information what you will, but bear in mind that when I say it, I'm biased because I'd like you to subscribe to the channel, just like how the sources we're going to be referencing today have their own biases and their own views of things that might not necessarily be a perfect reflection on reality. Anyway, the Department of Homeland Security has for the first time awarded funding, nearly $700,000, to a research group working directly with major gaming companies to develop effective counter-terrorism methods and protect vulnerable gamers. This is called the Center on Terrorism, Extremism, and Counterterrorism, which, it has to be said, seems a bit redundant to put both counterterrorism and terrorism in their name. Are they funding both sides of this issue? Anyway, their big goal as a company is to solve the problem of bad online behavior at scale, which is a super vague thing to be in favor of. I mean, who doesn't want to solve the problem of bad online behavior at scale? But their actual explanation is that they want to have best practices and centralized resources for monitoring and evaluation of extremist activities, which they can use for community managers, multiplayer designers, lore developers, mechanics designers, and trust and safety professionals. I mean, do lore developers really need to be watching out for extremist activity? Like, is there a version of the story behind why the abandoned mineshaft got there that leads you down the extremist rabbit hole? Maybe there is, because according to the CTEC, basically big gaming companies need to be targeted because unlike social media companies, which have been taking steps to limit extremist content and limit the things that you can say there for quite some time, big gaming companies have been essentially acting like social platforms, specifically calling out Roblox, Activision Blizzard, and Bungie, because people play these games and use them as social spaces. And so in the same way that you might be recruited on Facebook to join a conspiracy theory group or to go fight in the Middle East for ISIS, maybe in the same way you could be playing a game developed by Roblox or Microsoft, they specifically call out, and because these games don't have counter-extremism teams like social media does, you could be ending up quite deep down that rabbit hole. In fact, they say directly they want to be that sophisticated on the games industry side as well. Direct quote right there. And it's an interesting point because, yeah, on regular social media, you can make friends of people and those friends could say some things that push you down a place. Could you be playing Minecraft Skywars? You get really close to this guy, he's really fun, you're playing with him all night, and then in the middle of the game talk, he says, oh yeah, just so you know, I've always liked people like you because there's this big group of people that are running the world, they're slowly growing and they're replacing us, and I just think it's such a big shame. It's actually part of this ideology I'm a part of. You should read up more about it if you want, because that's the way the world really works. Maybe if you're young and impressionable, you go, wow, the guy who's really good at Skywars makes a really good point about identitarian politics, and maybe I should join his opinion on what is correct there. I mean, it is plausible, right? You can make the argument that if it can happen on social media, and social media itself seems to think that it can, then maybe it can happen on these online games as well. I mean, it isn't a stretch at all to say that gaming is a type of social media. If you spend a lot of time in there talking to people and playing with people, you're already doing a shared activity together and you're kind of building something up as well. And so if it is entirely true, and you know, that's maybe a different debate, that social media genuinely can radicalize people, very normal people who otherwise, are very normal, who then decide to become bigoted, racist people who maybe even on the extreme side of things commit acts of domestic terror or international terror, go crazy. But if it's possible that those big social media platforms can do that, then it entirely makes sense that the same checks should be applied to games as well. And I do see the point there that games are social media platforms in a way. I mean, if it wasn't true, then corporations wouldn't be setting up gaming accounts for entirely non-gaming related businesses like KFC or Domino's, which they're both very strange examples, but it is the point that yes, in a way, Minecraft is one of the biggest social media platforms that is out there, and since games as a whole are a very big media, it seems as though a lot of people see a lot of things. So according to the American Defamation League and their Hate is No Game survey from 2021, they concluded that 83% of players have experienced harassment in online multiplayer games. That is, out there, 100 million survey is a very big deal, you might say. 3 out of 5 people who are aged 13 to 17 experience harassment in these games, and then the plots that get really crazy are the fact that they say 8% of adults who play games reported being exposed to discussions in online multiplayer games around white supremacist ideology. They also say a further 7% were exposed to Holocaust denial, and so it's a very, very serious thing, you know, if you believe that those things can go places like social media platforms can. And so the chat reporting that was added to Minecraft might seem like it was added because of discussions with the Department of Homeland Security prior to this. I mean, it was confirmed by the director of the CTEC that they have been previously speaking to gaming companies, and that they've been usually, kind of non-cooperative in general, that sharing data is not their instinct. And so it seems as though they probably had some big talk with someone from a researching firm, or maybe even the government themselves, and they said, oh my god, this is terrible, we need to do something big about this. I mean, from all of the back channels that I've been speaking to at Minecraft about chat reporting, it's not something they're massively enthusiastic about. They just think it's the best option they have compared to what could happen if they don't. I mean, again, having hundreds of millions of players and having precisely zero filtering from the game itself is a bad look. However, here's the really crazy bit. You might therefore think, okay, it looks like they added chat reporting just to appease the government. I mean, I guess business gonna do what business gonna do. They just, kowtow to all their demands. However, the weird thing is this isn't seen as going far enough by most people within the CTEC and the ADL, because here's the deal. There is a game studio, they are called Wildlife Studios, and they have chat reporting, and during their transparency report they do every year, they confirmed that out of the messages reviewed by their safety team, which was 100,000 by the way, they automatically scanned another 33 million. Out of those, 21,000 contained insults, 20,000 contained profanity, 6,604 contained hate speech, 5,335 were sexual, and then 321 were bullying, 105 radicalization, and 77 were threats and violence directly. And so, yeah, you can look at this two ways. One is to say, oh my god, there are hundreds of people being radicalized or directly threatening each other, and even more concerningly, given that Wildlife Studio mostly makes mobile games, including this weird Minecraft knockoff called Block Game, but like, given that they make these games, it is concerning to see that many sexual messages, it's concerning to see bullying, etc, etc, but the really concerning thing is the fact that, yeah, this is just one studio who publishes their data. Imagine how much more is happening across the industry directly. And so the CTEC says that, wow, 105 people who are being radicalized, and that's just what's being scanned of just this one studio. It must be tens of thousands of people across the industry. People are seeing all sorts of extremist content, and they're seeing it in games. And so what both the CTEC and ADL recommend are that online gaming companies go further than social platforms when it comes to transparency, and which they do audits and include metrics on in-game extremism and toxicity so that they can prevent these things from happening. Both of these bodies seem to think that is the biggest issue, and so as a result, if you are a fan of Homeland Security, or you're a fan of the idea of preventing defamation, or you don't like terrorism, clearly the only thing you should say is that yes, we need more filtering, we need more employees hired at these companies to specifically limit what people can say. I mean, it's very easy to come to agreeing with them that Minecraft's chat filtering does not go far enough. In fact, Minecraft's chat filtering is just the first step towards actually making Minecraft a safe place for people to be, and indeed for making gaming a safe place for this planet to be able to hold. However, like I mentioned at the start of this video, the American Defamation League has one primary goal. Their goal is not to make games enjoyable, their game is to limit the prevalence of hate speech and defamation and to fight it when it comes up. And the same thing is true for the Department of Homeland Security. I mean, some of the employees there might like playing games, but their big concern is terrorism, which it does have to be mentioned right now, right here, that yes, we live in a world that is very scary for traditional intelligence agencies. There aren't these hierarchical organizations which people know about and can maybe tell on. Instead, it can just be one person radicalizes another, and then they use basic materials which all of us have access to, whether it's knives or a vehicle or whatever else, and they can use that to cause mass devastation and loss of life for some weird zany political cause. It is near impossible to stop a terror act unless you have people who are directly involved in sharing that stuff, and so when you have more direct person-to-person contact where other people can't be involved, you have much more spread of extremism and terror. It's actually pretty scary when you look into most of the big events that do make it through, where it's like, yeah, we maybe knew about this guy, guy, but sometimes it's just a person out of the blue who decides, yeah, I feel like I'll kill 50 people for this cause that I have, and how can you keep track of all the people who have these causes? And that is why they want games to be involved in this. Anywhere that people talk, they want people to be vigilant about people maybe going down these avenues, and I think that this does make sense from their perspective, but I also think that it's about balancing your individual right as a person to say and to enjoy things with our collective right not to be at risk from whether it's far right, whether it's extreme Islamic terrorism, whatever forms of extreme event that scare you, you need to be, like in the same way that you need to be free from the threat of murder, but you don't want to give up all your rights to do so. We need to combat extremism, particularly when it leads to real life harm in the form of, direct violence or even just, sexual exploitation. All of these things are definitely things that the industry needs to look at. However, what I do find a little bit skeptical is that, only the United States Department of Homeland Security thinks this is the biggest of concerns. Spending $700,000 of public money, by the way, to a research group which tries to find the best solutions possible, and a research group which even admits themselves at the very end here, in all honesty, we usually scare companies into listening to us. Although there are very noble goals behind this, I think scaring people into listening to you and using these big examples of crazy things that can happen from inside of a game, I'm sure by now there are dozens of examples of people who met other people via Twitter or Discord that have done absolutely crazy things in the real world, and so no doubt at some point there'll be some big mass killing that happens because of a video game out there. I really don't imagine it'll ever be Minecraft. I made the example of the Skywars game where someone gets radicalized because I think it's entirely ridiculous, but maybe it does happen and we all say, yeah, I think we all should be living in a much more censored, much more restricted place just so we can have a safer world. However, I think it's generally be true for most of history that you generally can't give up your liberty in exchange for security. There's a famous Benjamin Franklin quote that he who gives up his liberty for security shall have neither, and it's generally true. I mean, if you look at, for example, planes and the security that was put in place after 9/11, they haven't caught a single terrorist, and we all give up all of our security. A very invasive check is performed on you if you want to fly anywhere in the world, basically. And what have we gained as a result? The answer is, let's be honest, not too much. We've seen health fear to become a thing over the last couple of years. We always need to be seen like we're doing big things about stuff, but rather than being seen to be doing big, great things that take a little bit of liberty from everyone and a little bit of freedom of choice from people, I think instead work on measures that are much more effective than that. I think rather than having to have a tool where everyone can report everyone else, and then a human being who, let's be honest, is not being paid great and probably has their own personal biases, is reviewing your messages and deciding whether you're inciting terror or extremism into other people or bullying or any of these other things, rather than trying to use this super flawed system of humans trying to punish people from within a video game, how about instead we use systems of education where we tell people very directly, here are the messages you might hear at some point, here is the truth behind those very catchy messages, and here is the bit they're not telling you. I mean, like someone might be trying to tell you that, yeah, there's this really wonderful system where we take all the money from everyone and we're all rich all of the time. However, here's how it's worked in practice. And then you point to, like Maoist China or Soviet Russia. Someone might be trying to tell you there's this magical far-right utopia where we can make the world better and we can all look after each other and have all of these things. And then we could point to exactly how that's gone down in history. And we could also point out exactly why it's so appealing and why it is bad if you think that it is. And all of these different things, rather than people learning, because the actual complaint here is that people might learn about something for the first time. They might learn about identitarianism or something from an online video game. Maybe they shouldn't learn it there first. I mean, we have these entire buildings, I think, that we use to teach people things, and why don't we dedicate some time to not only learning about the civic process in the country that you live in, but also teaching people about how they can be a healthy member of that society, because that could be the biggest leg up that we give people who actually need it, so they don't become isolated and play video games in such a way that the first time someone mentions this great new theory, they just become a big member of it, and which they have nothing to lose, and so they start, shooting at random people or stabbing them or driving them over. I'm just saying, I feel as though there are all sorts of things that could be done, and I think it should be very low on the totem pole where you say there should be lots of in-game moderation teams who are always monitoring for hate speech and violence and etc., because, I just think that's such a simplistic response that doesn't ever really achieve something. It's just a world where you always see that something's happening and you feel like good things are being done, which maybe ultimately is the goal of government, is to make sure things look like they're being done. Because if you achieve something and no one knows that you've achieved it, that's not anywhere near as impressive as when you look like you're solving something because everyone can see the problem that you're desperately trying to get at. And if you are someone who works on a cycle where you need to be elected by people, looking like you did very important things is much more important than doing very important things, as we can see by the social media prevalence of representatives, who maybe you could even argue are doing some of the radicalization themselves. But anyway, that's the whole point for another time. I hope that you all enjoyed this video. Hope you found it interesting, and I hope that now you know that Minecraft themselves probably weren't the instigators of this. Probably instead they had many conversations with government departments, directly or indirectly, and that actually those same government departments want Minecraft to go a lot further. So I look forward to Minecraft 1.20.1, am I right? More seriously, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if there are people you care about that you think are isolated, have conversations with them. Have conversations about all these crazy wildcard things, because we've moved to a world where we think that not talking about bad things makes them go away, but I think it's important to actually discuss things, and maybe that's just me. But if you agree, then yeah, I hope you have a good day, because I'll see you in the next one, okay?